Well, a big hello to all our fans out there. Your virtual cruise host, Jason here, and welcome to another edition, a split edition, a shared edition of All Access Pass at Home. As you know, if you've been following along with me and or the website here, our YouTube channel, we've been doing a lot of these interviews with a lot of different stars that have been doing some great stuff. We're just catching up with some of your favorites from either today or yesterday. And every now and then we stumble across some of your favorites that are also doing their own work out here in the YouTube universe and doing some wonderful interviews and some work themselves. And not only are they part of our cruise family, having been on a rock and romance cruise, but of course, absolute legends, members of Foreigner. And I'd like you to help me in English. I'd like you to help me welcome Bruce Watson and Michael Bluestein. How you doing, gentlemen?
Hey, hey.
Hey, Jason.
What's happening,
Great
Jason?
to see you guys, man. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I prefer to be sitting on the poop deck of a gigantic luxury liner, but this will have to do.
There's always a hierarchy of places we could be, right?
Do they actually have poop decks on these cruiser liners?
I'm sure they do. You know, I think it's a general term for any
probably try to avoid
a,
using that one, right?
Now they do. Yeah. Now they do. Nobody wants to swab the poop deck anymore. So
it's just people with 5-year-old personalities like me just can't stop laughing, and
too many of the older generation eating too rich food too frequently, just not good for anybody in any world. So moving along quickly before we go down a path we can't recover from.
Yes.
You guys, and I know we'll get into it in a minute, so I don't want to go too deep now, but you guys have been doing some really cool stuff. And I know it's not just on YouTube and online. I know you do it live. And again, I want to get into it, but very important beer, V.I.B. You guys have a really cool thing.
There,
there it is. There's the merch.
Boom.
Let's do the shameless plug. Can people buy the merch?
Oh, hell yeah, they can. At the boneyardrockshop.com.
You can also get these guys.
Boneyardrockshop.com. What is that?
It's a little beer cozy.
A cozy?
If you want to make Bruce
looks like a koozie.
Oh well, those are fighting words. Those are fighting words for Bruce, man. Don't get him riled up by calling it a koozie.
You're riled up.
Okay, so t-shirts, cozies, anything else on the merch shop right now? Or are those your two premier items?
Oh, wait a minute. We have a keychain. Isn't there a Foreigner keychain?
Yeah,
so I have one lying around here somewhere.
It's like a Mick Jones Les Paul.
Very cool.
It says Foreigner on the back, and it's an
opener. That's awesome. That's cool. And it's an opener.
Yeah, it's a bottle opener keychain. Yeah, in the shape of a Les Paul guitar signature.
Pretty cool.
Mick Jones model.
See what you did there. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll jump more into V.I.B. here in a minute. Before we do, would both of you regale us with as short or as long a story as you care to, with a little bit of how you became part of Foreigner? Bruce, I'll start with you, sir.
Sure. It's coming up. I'll be at my 9th year. It's coming up in a couple weeks. And Mick Jones, at that time, almost about 9 years ago, he fell ill in the middle of a tour with Journey, and had to kind of pull out and get better. And they needed to cover the spot. And so they initially had Joel Hoekstra, who was playing with the opening act, Night Ranger. He came in and did a few shows, but for various reasons that couldn't go on indefinitely. And so they were very quickly trying to fill someone just to come in and cover right in the middle of this gigantic tour, cover the slot of, the mighty Mick Jones. And so that was about 9 years ago. I came in, it was only supposed to be for a couple weeks. Yeah, big shoes to fill. My first show was like, 13,000 people somewhere like in Nashville. It was that. It was good. So it was supposed to be a couple weeks, and then they said, well, Mick's not quite ready to come back yet. Can you stay next week? What are you doing till the end of the month? I was like, okay, this is great. Yeah. Not think it was going to be. Yeah. I thought, this is what a great opportunity. In a month, it'll be over, and I'll carry on with my life. And that's not how it happened. Mick came back, and he decided it was good to have another guy there. And so that was 9 years ago, and that's it. That's on it goes.
Yeah.
Michael, before we jump to you, Bruce, following up on that. So filling in for Mick, first of all, you've been around the scene, and I know you're not a braggart, but you have a laundry list of mega artists that you've played with, toured with, sessioned with. I mean, absolutely, your pedigree is unquestionable. But still, do you feel a little something inside when you're stepping in for Mick and Foreigner?
Well, yes, I still feel something when I play the songs. It's no longer really stepping in for Mick because I've been in the band for so long. It's just we play together. So I there are times when I, once in a while he can't make a show, so I do fill his shoes. And yeah, I kind of feel like I don't really feel like I'm filling his shoes anymore.
Sure.
But I do always feel the power of the songs and the power of his guitar playing in the songs, and I'm trying to live up to that for sure. It's not like it's not second nature to that point where I'm not aware of how great it all is. So I'm still really aware of that.
It's interesting, I think, and I'm sure both of you can attest to, if the general music listener may not always know it or sense it, but certainly the music heads will, that guitarists have a unique sound as much so often as a vocalist will. And even playing the same rig, the same get up, the same, frequencies, the whole 9 yards, it can still be a very different sound. Yeah. It can be a very different sound. And Mick's sound is unique. He's got a very cool sound. Is that something you tried to emulate, or were you trying to do it justice, but do it your own way?
Well, I would say I would try to emulate it because I just think it's so fantastic. And, if something's really great, you kind of want to get it down. And so I would never want to lose sight of, if you're totally copying someone, it's hard to inject your feelings into the moment. So you have to make sure you don't lose that just to, get a sound out of someone. But hopefully the two can go together. So I think that's what I've tried to do, is I try to play it like Mick. But Mick is just more about soulful music. He doesn't really care. He wouldn't care if I sound like him or not. He actually would just want to be heartfelt and soulful. So that's nice to know that that's where he's coming from. And he doesn't need to be, if you get close with the spirit of it is what matters probably most to Mick. But to your point about the guitarists have their own sound, no more clearly was that demonstrated than when I came in and I jumped on his rig, and for however long I played through his guitar, his amps, and it didn't sound like Mick Jones at all. It sounded like me, It was just astounding, like playing through his exact rig, and it still just sounded like me. So you're right; it's all right here.
Absolutely. I think that, I think that's true for most instruments. I don't mean to say just guitar. I think that's true. You hear it in the way people play piano. You hear it in the way people play different instruments. Absolutely. Obviously, drummers have hugely different sounds. Who's heavier on what and lighter on what, and yada yada. I think a great compliment, though, for you, Bruce, specifically, is that it's one thing to be a lead guitarist, and it's another thing to be a support, or a second guitar. It's a totally different game to be able to fill both roles. And I'm sure someone has said it to you before, but I hope you've taken a moment in your life to recognize that that's not an easy slot, and that's a pat on the back, sir. Yeah,
I think for me, that's just by nature, I'm really comfortable with. I like getting a piece of music that I can support. I don't particularly feel like the center, to being the guy who's in the center of something. I much more being part of a team and supporting a piece of music, supporting a band. I mean, I like stepping out. I like getting attention, like the normal person, but I do like supporting something that's already great, The music is so great and the mix is so great. It's just, I like to support it. So that comes naturally, but thanks, it takes some thought,
Sure. There's a time you want to throw in a big kick that you got to remind yourself that Mick's out front.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Michael, how about you, sir? How'd you come to be a part of Warner?
Well, so I'm in my 13th year now, and actually, I don't know if you've heard about. There's a music convention called NAMM, the National Association of Music Merchants, which happens every year. Although I don't think it's happening this coming January.
I don't think anything's happening this coming January.
Yeah, exactly. It's a kind of a great networking and just a big hang. It's very heavy on the gear part of. Musicians come out and all the retailers come out and demo their new gear, the newest software, the newest guitar models, keyboards,
oboes,
everything. Yeah, was that
oboes?
Yeah,
everything. That harmonica.
Yeah. It's enormous. It fills up the whole Anaheim Convention Center.
It is big.
Multiple floors and everything. Anyway, I had worked with this man named Paul Merkovich back in 2005, or actually no, it was like early 2005. He had hired me. I auditioned to play with this artist Anastasia, kind of pretty big in Europe, an American artist that's really big in Europe. And anyway, I auditioned and got the keyboard chair to work with her, and had stayed in touch off and on with Paul, who had hired me. And Paul's actually the musical director for The Voice, the long-running, very successful show that we all know. Anyway, and I just happened to run into Paul at NAMM at this convention, and it was just fortuitous, you know, serendipity, just good timing. He was playing with Foreigner at the time as an interim guy, and had the gig, but had told him right out of the gate, I can't do this permanently because I have other commitments, but I'll help you find somebody when I have to leave. And so I ran into him. He said, oh, you know, this is really good timing because I need to leave Foreigner and I need to find a replacement for myself. And I think you'd be great. Would you come in and audition? And that's how it worked out. And so I auditioned back in January of 2008 and then did my first gig in March of 08.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, as gentlemen like yourselves that are, well, first of all, I guess let me ask, Michael, you're classically trained. Am I correct in that?
I started classical piano when I was 9. So yeah.
So safe to say you're classically trained. I started it when I was 2.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys that are like, you know, play when they, you know,
Sure.
You talk to the hardcore classical guys, oh, that's too late. If you didn't start when you were 3 or 4, you know, no, but yeah, that was for a while, I couldn't play anything if the music wasn't in front of me, I couldn't play it. You know, there's that joke, how do you get a keyboard player to turn down, take the music away? How do you get a guitar player to turn down? Put a chart in front of him. Yeah.
Very true.
And it was super true for me. I was the cliche of that. Like I got really good at reading music and somehow I took to that. It just made sense to me, but I had to get, you know, learn to memorize and play more by ear and sort of by feel later, you know, kind of is what happened. But yeah.
Interesting in how that works, I think, for different musicians, right? It's some musicians, to your point, I mean, some musicians, I have friends, you know, very close friends that are huge, you know, hugely talented and big in the industry that can't read. They cannot read music. They can't
it's
read
certainly
music.
not, it's certainly not a, you know,
it's not a prerequisite, right?
It's pretty common in, you know, rock, pop, soul, you know, probably less so in classical and jazz music. You generally wouldn't find somebody who doesn't read in classical or jazz, but it's pretty common in you know, pop and rock.
Yeah. And actually that segues perfectly into this question. Now, when you join a group like Foreigner that is already so well established, that has so many huge hits, you know, by the time you guys joined, they already had, you know, a monster catalog. One of the things that we experience a lot on our cruises is because we have artists from all the different genres. We do cruises featuring 1950s artists all the way up to, you know, 70s, even into the 80s artists. And in that gap, you have a lot of tributes. You have a lot of acts that are still bands that are still together. You have a lot of bands that are not the same band that they were, you know, and they're just different members, and things change over time and that happens. But what we notice is the truer a band is to the way the song came out first, or the way that the audience remembers and loves it, the more successful that band is, at least on our cruises. And absolutely. As guys joining an already established group, that has to be something you're aware of stepping in, you know, this riff sounds like this on the record. Like, that's what it is. There's no personal signature here, you know?
Nope.
It really helps to be just a fan. It really helps to be a fan of music. That comes really naturally. It's a delightful challenge to try to, you know, cop the stuff that you were heard, you know, before we were in the band. Obviously we were fans before we were in the band. So yeah.
Absolutely. And the keyboard stuff, you know, I mean, for everybody in the band, but certainly in Foreigner, there's a lot of very signature keyboard. There are signature keyboard parts and sounds, and it's definitely important to get as close as you can, you know, with that stuff.
It's interesting because we've actually had artists themselves change or adapt or young up, as they like to say, some of their older original material, and it won't hit the same. People are they'll go, I see what you did, but let's do it the way you did it in 1978, you know, or 72 or 63.
There's a lot of that. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of, I mean, can you imagine waiting for a girl like you without you know, it just wouldn't.
Hot-blooded without the G chord in the early at the opener of that, right? You know, you can't. There's only so much you can adapt before someone goes, that's not what I grew up to, or not what I fell in love to, or not what I.
It's interesting. I've seen one band that I've seen, and they kind of get away with it, is Steely Dan. Donald Fagen, when they tour, he's always playing with background vocal arrangements, and they'll change things up, they'll add, but you know, they were always very jazz, driven and a lot as far as the chords and everything going. And like, he kind of gets a pass with that. People aren't stopping to come see their shows because of that. In a way, it's sort of, he's kind of earned the right to do that, but that's the exception. You don't, generally people don't do that.
To your point though, I think that if you've established yourself as this is what we do, it's a little different than the once off where, I'm going to go see Foreigner and then one song is different that wasn't, what? Like it's different if you're a jazzy-ish kind of, let's play with it a little bit and you're known for being a little bit of a wild man or a wild card in your sets, but
well, we do acoustic, Foreigner acoustic. And that
and I think that's the exception.
Yeah.
I think that's a great exception, right? I mean, there's really two versions of most songs. Most major hit songs are in people's heads. There's the record version, and then there's the acoustic sound, or the woodshed sound.
Right. Broken down. I guess what's a classic example when Eric Clapton did Layla as that ballad, for the MTV Unplugged thing. That
Rod Stewart did the whole. He kind of kicked that off.
Yeah, that's right. But I think it needs to be noted that when we do the acoustic thing, all those riffs, even if when we do the acoustic thing, I'm on more of an acoustic piano sound, of course, rather than lots of synth sounds. So any of those riffs, like the Waiting for a Girl Like You theme, or maybe not Feels Like the First Time as much, but a lot of those signature riffs I will play on piano, even though it's not a synth sound. So it gives the ear that melody that you've come accustomed to. That's so much integral to the song.
It's really interesting, because we have all the different groups, obviously on different cruises. I keep saying, and I mean, no disrespect to any band out there, but some bands will come out, and they'll start off big, and then they'll play a whole bunch of stuff, and then they'll hit another couple big at the end, and it's fun. They're great shows. I'm taking nothing from those shows. We have a handful of artists, granted we've done, Star Vista Live's done very well, and there's more than a handful of artists that come out and they do anywhere from 75 to, 90, 100 minutes. And it's just hit. Your guys' concert was like that. Your guys' concert, you guys walk on stage and it's at worst like top 10 hit for an hour and a half. I mean, at worst, it's like, oh, that one was only 10. Oh, maybe we leave that out of the set next time. Like, that's a monster show.
We do a 90-minute show, and there are still a couple in the bag that everyone knows around the world. I mean, how many bands have that? And I know that everybody in the band's really grateful to have these just killer songs that everybody knows.
Right.
It gives you, Jeff Pilson, our bass player, says it feels like cheating in a way, right?
Right.
We're going to throw this song in that these songs they don't really know, but hopefully we'll win them over. They'll stomach these for a bit until we get to the ones they really know. We don't have those moments in the show that we have to win people over with material that they don't know.
True. I mean, and I don't know who does your set lists for the group, but you almost kind of come to a point where you're choosing between your favorite kids, right? Well, what are we gonna? I mean, I know your set list is probably relatively set, I would guess, but I'm sure you have some flux in there in terms of, Kelly's a little bit of a wild card. We had obviously, he goes all over the place, and I'm sure that he throws in a curveball here and there on stage, and you got to be ready for it.
Yeah, it gets hard when you have to like when we do certain events where let's say they want 30 or 40 minutes or something. Then you're trying to cut off songs. You're like, well, God, we can't do Dirty White Boy. Okay, I mean, people want to hear all those songs. Sometimes it's hard to choose.
We've done a few, like a lot of times when we'll do like a football halftime thing or something, a stadium, where it's really quick. It's almost like, but that's amazing because then it becomes the power set of, just the hardest rocking stuff. It's like Cold as Ice, Hot Blooded, Feels Like the First Time, Jukebox Hero, and then we're gone. It's like hit them with just these monster ones. And like you're right, the whole set is hits, but certainly some of them
there's some monsters
more impactful, maybe, from a hard rocking standpoint.
If I were to pull the dirty trick of saying, you can't use the obvious handful of absolute monsters, do you guys have favorite songs to play, whether it's because of crowd reaction or just personal expression, that aren't necessarily just those couple of big monsters?
I would say, I think Bruce and I were the same on this one for a while. I don't know if we still are, but for me, Long Way From Home was, and that that was a hit. Kind of, I guess I'm technically more of a album rock, an album track, but one that got so much play. I mean, you know, I was a kid in the late 70s, and I would hear that all the time, even though it wasn't like top of the charts, like I Want to Know What Love Is, or Waiting for a Girl Like You, or maybe Feels Like the First Time. It wasn't like a smash, I don't know, top 10 single maybe, but still, it's just, if you listened to rock radio, then it just kept playing. So Long Way from Home for me.
Yeah, that is still, it's just like such a straight ahead rock guitar riff.
Yeah.
With cool horn stuff and just cool movement that you don't really expect from just a straight ahead, you know, rock song. That, and also Blue Morning.
Yeah.
That's really, every time that comes up, I'm like, oh yeah, I like this groove. I just like the semi-classical nature of the line. It's both those, there's something in common with those songs. I don't know what it is that I like, some of that classical movement. But those are two, you know, I like all the other ones too, you know. But
and I have no doubt. I mean, I wasn't meaning, do you have a favorite, as much as you know, there's got to be things that appeal to you, that it comes, oh yeah, this is my, you know, here we go. Like,
Kelly always successfully dodges that question. He says, I'm not a favorites guy.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's why I always try to make it a personally worded question, as opposed to what's your favorite movie of all time? Like, oh come on, man! Like, in what genre? In what?
The Big Lebowski, by the way, for me.
You're not wrong. Side note, you're not wrong. It's not about the rug, man.
Hey.
Well, is it? And I know this is a loaded, ridiculous question, but is it ever lost on you guys? You know, as when you step on stage, you know, being members and longtime members, you know, it's not like you're fill-ins. You guys are established longtime members of Foreigner. And when you guys step out on stage and an audience goes bananas and knows every word to every song and is screaming and dancing and whatever the audience is doing, does it, and I know this, again, loaded question, but can that get old? Or does it still hit you like, wow, here we go?
Bruce, why don't you field it first, and then
how could that ever get old? I think what hit me, you're asking that question, was there are some times when we go out and do, like, let's say a very large gig in front of a large amount of people, and sometimes we come off and maybe you'll be on the bus later and we'll talk about it, think about, look at that gig we just did. We're like, we are so lucky, you know. In the moment, sometimes you just you're doing it, you know, like you. So maybe you're not like every moment you're not just self-aware of going, oh, this is incredible. You're kind of playing and doing a musical thing, but afterwards, a lot of times, just going, man, I can't even believe how lucky we are that we just got to do that amazing gig in front of that many people, and you know.
I think the gratitude of that can feed the excitement and feed the enthusiasm. And also, every show, even if you're playing the same songs, every show is unique. I mean, this may sound sort of like metaphysical or philosophical or somehow, but overly, but I mean, the energy in every room, even if you're playing the same songs, it's always going to be slightly different, right? The front rows, the faces that you see out there are going to feel a little different. There'll be different levels of excitement, or, you know, maybe somebody's just like dancing in a really funny way or something, or like there's just always something unique about every show for me somehow. And it's like fuel, the enthusiasm that you get back. That excitement is, it's fuel. It gets you excited. It's a feedback loop, right? You know, you feed on that excitement and then you pour it back out and then it comes back in, and, you know, it's sort of like, if you open yourself up to that, there's kind of no way not to feel that, you know.
There has to be some type of emotion too, as a musician, that really, if you want to be a rock musician, you're at the pinnacle of rock musicianry. You know, I mean, if this is what you wanted to do, you're doing it. And there has to be that feeling as well. I mean, even if, and I'm not saying every moment you have to be eternally grateful, but I'm sure both of you seem like very, you know, intelligent and well thought out. I have no doubt that at times you kind of go, whew, this is where I wanted to be.
That's a regular theme. That's a regular theme. And I think that, I feel fortunate that that's always present on some level, that gratitude and that just this realization, like Bruce just said, we're sitting on the bus, whoa, we get to do this, and now we hop on this bus with guys that we love to hang out with, and we're friends, and like, wow, just like we just played these, like, you know, 13 monster songs, you know, that everyone knew and was so psyched to hear. It's like, I mean, if you're at all aware and present, it's like that will that continues to make an impression and continues to fuel you, you know.
And I also think that we also appreciate, I really appreciate, especially being home for this long, is having a great crew. And when everything, I think we probably do take it for granted because they nail it like every time. They're up against crazy obstacles sometimes, you know, logistical stuff. And so walk out there and we just are able to play, you know, and but there's so much that happens to get it to that point where we can just walk out and play. And so that's just constantly appreciative of that part of the whole equation, just all the technical stuff. My instruments are maintained and just I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I just get to play music, and that's huge.
You know, I love that you said that, Bruce, because I think that's something that as we go through all of this, right, you know, we were talking off camera for a moment before we started that, you know, this is the longest a lot of artists have been off in their careers, not to mention, you know, if you've been doing it at a decent level, you know, a decent level of stardom, you probably haven't been off for 6-7 months. In how long can you count, right? You know, it just doesn't happen. And I think some of what gets overlooked in the entertainment industry as a whole, and I'm not saying just music, but you go into movies and TV and, you know, you broaden out into entertainment, it's the crew, right? How many people does entertainment feed? Not just who does it entertain, how many people aren't making millions per show, but are still have a steady gig because they work every show. And you got crew guys and girls and you got stadium employees and all these. It's a really broad reaching thing. And it's, you know, I appreciate you calling some attention to them because absolutely, you know, the crew, any hardworking, you know, entertainer that's done anything surely has a badass crew behind them.
There's so much that goes into the show and like what you're saying. I mean, just, and like Bruce said, the kind of the obstacles and the, you know, the variables and the unforeseen, right? Every day we come in and it's just whatever, it's a terrible sounding room, right? Maybe just acoustically, it's, you know, where our front of house guy, our sound man is presented with a challenge. How do I ring out all these unwanted frequencies in the room and, you know, figure that out on the fly that day, you know? We have a stage that, you know, maybe that's like rocking and, you know, like we have to fortify the stage somehow, do some carpentry, like right that day to kind of, to make it more steady
power
and safe,
supplies,
safe for us, right? Bad power, you know, right? Exactly. Like losing power.
Loading docks, elevators, you know, stairwells. Yeah, it's
where
you can and can't park and unload a truck. You know,
right.
Stuff like that. You're like, what?
Yeah, some theater might, you know.
They had to push it 2 blocks.
And we play some of those. Like what's that one in New Jersey, the Count Basie Theater. Yeah. I know that in Red Bank, New Jersey, I know that load-in is really, really tough, you know.
They're cool buildings, but not made to bring. Yeah. They weren't built with the thought of bringing in tons of equipment.
Yeah.
Like cruise ships, trust me. I'm right there with you. Yeah. We understand intimately.
Example. Perfect example.
When we go through it all the time, obviously with each one of these cruises, you know, it's the load in is depending on which artists we have. And there's some backline that's generic, you know, you got to have a certain amount of this, a certain amount of that, regardless if it's foreigner or a solo act, you still need certain things and that's fine. But then of course each artist has, or each band has proclivities and needs and wants and specific instruments, or, you know, we could have 4 bands and have 4 different requirements for the soundboard. You know, as you guys know, but our listeners might not. And a soundboard is a major piece of equipment. It can be 4 feet wide, or it can be 9 to 10 feet wide, and hundreds of pounds. And every band, you know, their front of house. I'm sure your front of house guy loves the, you know, whatever it is, the PM1D or whatever his or her board is. That's his or her favorite. And you know, you don't want to work on a different board.
Well, and now that everything's computerized and digitized, he has a little file. He has a file, and that file with all our settings doesn't work in anything but that. You know.
Yeah, totally. It's well, I really appreciate you guys bringing up crew and you know talking a little bit about it, because I think that it's overlooked a lot, and I know that it's never overlooked by the artists. Or rarely, I should say, is it overlooked by the artists. But from the outside looking in, I think people, to your point, you know, Michael, as you're talking about, and Bruce in the beginning there, people don't recognize how much goes into Foreigner just doesn't show up at a building, walk on stage and rock. There are hours that go into
every day.
that go into making that happen, where then of course you guys as the talent get to go out and do what you do. But thank you for recognizing that. I know that all the backline, the crew guys and gals out there appreciate it. So shifting gears a little bit, and this is a kind of ridiculous question, but what keeps you guys regular guys? You are members of one of the greatest rock bands of all time. You guys are playing in front of hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people. You're playing some of the greatest rock and roll hits and ballad hits ever written, performed on stage. And you are central members of that group. What keeps you regular? What keeps you normal guys?
Do you want to?
Well, gosh,
I
wouldn't even, it doesn't even occur to me that it would be any other way. So it's a hard question to answer, because it doesn't occur to me that it would, that it could be any other way. I just don't, I think, maybe if I were Mick Jones and I created Foreigner, I might have, maybe a proclivity to think I was something, cool, but I just didn't occur to me. I think you'd fail in life if you sort of weren't normal, regular. I think people would just fail. So,
it's funny. Yeah, it's funny. I think Bruce and I are really similar. Like it doesn't, thankfully it comes naturally. Like it's not like, okay, go out there and, be nice to people and don't
remember to shake hands.
Remember not to come off as an arrogant dick, like that's not it. Thankfully, I think both of us, it's probably, we haven't necessarily had to work at that. But I also want to say that a big part of that is, I think, just when you're committed to being the best musician you can be, and it's humbling.
Sure.
I think it's humbling what's been done before us. I'm playing in a band. I didn't write these songs. That in itself is humbling, right? And I also have heroes of songwriters and musicians that have achieved so much, way more than I ever probably will. I'm doing my best, but it's sort of like, if you're at all self-aware and you're aware of that, it's sort of like, how could you possibly think you're all that, I don't know. It just like, I look at my heroes and what they did, but when they were, by the time they were half my age, and like, I could maybe hope to get this much. That's just every day that's in my mind. It's like, even if I'm not thinking about it consciously in those words that I just articulated, it's just, that's the baseline, right? That's what's always informing my life.
Well, it's really interesting because, I obviously keep referencing back to the cruises because that's, our primary interaction with the big bands and the big stars, on a close-knit basis. And we have to be careful. When we choose who we want to headline and who we want to be a part of our cruise, it's a small environment. It's not like Foreigner hits the stage and then gets to go home.
Yeah.
You guys have to then, you can choose to hide in your room, which is fine. Or if you want to be out at all, you're going to be around people, meaning we have to be careful when we choose different artists. And, Star Vista Live specifically, and the executive producers do a lot of homework, and they ask a lot of questions of a lot of upper ups about, hey, is this group going to be okay in this type of environment? I know they're great, which is wonderful, but we're also producing a cruise which needs, amenable people that are going to say hi when they walk down the hallway, or, just getting my eggs. How you doing? Good morning. As you move on with your breakfast tray. But what was the cruise experience like for you guys, or for Foreigner as a whole? I know it was a little while ago, obviously, but I know we really appreciated having you, and the guests, they went bananas at the fact that, the show you guys put on was just a monster. Just a monster.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
It was fun to do it. But I do remember I can't remember if it was this cruise or the one prior, but sometimes the weather is hysterical when you're staying on stage.
Yeah.
And it's like, you'd have to sort of keep from falling over. You have certain unconscious moves that you might be doing, and, a couple times, you can't wear slippery shoes.
Why is Bruce swaying off beat? Don't worry about it. He's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Wait, wasn't
remember
there one
one.
time, Mike, we played out on the deck? Remember that? And it was.
I was thinking about that one. I think that was, I want to say that was early 2013. I can't remember which one. Well, we've done a few of these, so I can't remember which one it was. But I remember it was on the amount of wind and the pitching.
Right.
It was the ship was pitching so violently, and the wind was blowing. I mean, it was just amazing. Like the fact that nothing fell over, or
But I bet the crowd was there.
They were.
Yep.
See,
They loved it.
that's the thing, right? At the end of the day, I'm sure you've performed at festivals where it's poured down rain, but the band is undercover, and things like that, and they're still there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fandom is a crazy thing, like that level of.
It's no joke. It's no joke.
Right? It is no joke.
Yeah.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's jump into V.I.B. So very important beers. Where does the concept come from? How does this become? Why is this even a thing? What is it?
Thank you, Michael.
Well, okay, so yeah, great question there. I am wearing the shirt. Let me just direct attention.
Yep.
The careful eye will notice that the look, there's the koozie. Boneyardrockshop.com. Shameless plug.
He said
it
koozie,
borrows.
by the way.
I'm sure I'll get a nasty text later.
Get him, Bruce.
I can't take you anywhere.
I only said it because I knew he couldn't physically. He couldn't
Yeah,
get
it's too
at
far
me
away to contact
because
you.
we're on Zoom. So yeah, I knew I could
Sorry,
get
you were
away with
saying,
it.
Michael.
Anyway, so it started. Bruce and I share a love and a passion for beer and kind of curiosity about it, and over the years it's developed, and we've gained more of a palate. In fact, we are certified beer servers.
Which means you're waitresses?
CBS.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
What it means is that we've achieved the first level we are first level cicerone. So a cicerone, you can imagine, what a sommelier is in the wine world, right? So a cicerone, a master cicerone in the beer world, is the master knows.
And how many
everything.
levels are there?
There are 4, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're the first level, so we're humble down. But we've learned a lot.
You're still a level above most human beings.
Exactly. So we just talking to other beer aficionados, and somebody had the idea. Well, why don't you guys do? I think it was pitched to us, sort of. You guys could do like events and do tastings, and so from there it evolved, and we started hooking up with these breweries. We would have a night off in a city, and we started, booking these things where we would come in, and sort of like a meet and greet kind of thing. So instead of a VIP, we made it a V.I.B, very important beer, and we'll do a little acoustic set. Do maybe 4 or 5 foreigner songs, just a quick set, and then do photos and signings, and then sample the beers and talk about the beers that this particular brewer has. And
Just the two of you, or the whole group?
Just the 2 of us.
Yeah.
And so it started that way, and we've been doing that for years now. I feel like maybe it's been 4 or 5 years or so.
Very cool.
Maybe not that. I always go longer, but what's that?
That reality just hit Bruce between the eyes.
Yeah.
That reality just snapped his head back.
Well, I've learned to say that it's longer than I think it is, because usually it is.
Yeah.
So 2 months ago, exactly.
So we've done them all over the States. Just good, like, independent brewers, and people seem to love them. And a lot of times we'll get the radio station involved.
Sure.
They'll come by and do a little interview and be sponsors for it.
Give away tickets.
Give away tickets. Yep, exactly. And so it started that way, and of course now, in lieu of that,
now here we are online. Yeah,
we're doing it virtually. But we're psyched. Once everything opens up again, we'll get back to doing them again.
Yeah, look forward to doing them in person. That's a whole nother experience. But we wouldn't have the time to do what we're doing here, because we're on the road. Honestly, it'd be tough to do even once a week, to have cool guests like we have, to be that organized. I mean, it'd be really fun to pull off on the road, man. So it's nice that we have the time to develop this thing, which people can go view on YouTube. Very important view.
And is this something that ultimately you guys, now that you've driven it online, I know you're excited to get back and do them in person, but would you still, I assume, film and show them online and produce them for a video content audience?
Yes.
We talked about trying to do that. Yeah. I mean, we would certainly make the attempt. Yeah. Yeah, because it's up and running, you know, and
it's up and running. I think there's probably 17, 18 of them up there maybe by
I
now.
thought I saw 17, but
17.
Don't quote me on that, but I thought I saw 17.
Yeah, don't quote me either. Yeah,
I'm in them. Don't quote me either. Yeah. I mean, really, you guys have really created arguably one of the ultimate dreams. You're like, well, we like beer. We're going to become beer specialists, and then we're going to create a show focused on drinking beer. This is our job now, outside of being rock stars. Allow me to say, well done. The rest of us are humbled in your presence.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers to that.
I think that calls for a toast.
Absolutely. So when you're moving around the country, how do you decide what breweries to go to? How do you let's go to the live version. How do you decide where to go versus?
It really depended on the day. Like it has to be a day off because there's just no time on a show day to do anything like that. So, and we don't have that many days off where we're actually like in the city, because oftentimes day off we're actually traveling. So it really is limited. And so we have to look at our schedule, find the city, and then people will help us. We'll look as well, but people will, you know, we have my guitar tech helps a lot, Chris Leprage, and other people will do some scouting as to what breweries are in town, and they'll place calls and see if people would like the concept, and it's always goes over really great. So, but it's you know, it's a very narrow time slot that we can find that we can actually put it off. So
we have enough time. We have enough time in advance, and so you know we'll know that we have a night there, Indianapolis, Des Moines, wherever, and you know we'll reach out and try to hook it up for that night.
So what I'm hearing is, like everything else in your world, there's a production value aspect to this where Foreigner gets to show up and play to a certain extent with some other folks doing some hard work to make sure you guys are set up and ready to go. Has that changed now that you're doing it, the online version? I mean, are you guys doing most of this all yourselves now, or do you still have assistants that are?
Well, we do have. Yeah. We actually Mick Jones' assistant on the road, Adam Sherman. Sharman, am I pronouncing it right? Sure, Adam Sherman. Anyway, he helps us out. He does the editing, and he does a great job. Yeah, he does sort of like, we had a beer bell for a while. Anytime someone took a sip, you know, any of the sponsors that you know, we had Cigar City, like was showing, you know, we can put their logo up. He's been doing that stuff for us, and we actually record the audio, you know, into our, you know, music production systems, you know, and then send that files to him, so the audio is more hi-fi and all that.
Is the video version easier in some ways, just because it's, you know, you can clue in, you can have a guest, you can have all these guests. The guest doesn't have to be there. The guest can phone in from home or, you know, wherever they are in the world. That's got to alleviate some of the, you know, make it fun at least.
We never really would have. I mean, the in-person V.I.Bs, we don't have guests. It's not, we come and we play, and that's sort of, it's built on that. So, and we actually started doing these V.I.Bs, just Michael and I hanging out, discussing beers, drinking, and goofing off, just being ourselves, which that works. But then we decided to have I think our first guest was Dax Nielsen from Cheap Trick. He's a really great friend. And
Dax is great.
And we thought like, let's have Dax on, that'd be fun. And then we had so much fun doing that. It was the beginning of this whole lockdown. Everyone was very available and keen to hang out on Zoom. So it was not hard to get people to come and just chat with us. So, you know, kind of evolved in that way.
And you guys want to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
No, I'd just say, like, we're lucky enough to be friends with all these amazing players and people, you know. I mean, we just had Lauren Gold of The Who, keyboard player with The Who, you know, Dan Rothschild, bass player with Heart forever, Matt Bissonette from Elton John's band. So we had Rick Wills, who was was in Foreigner from 79, I think, to like 93, you know, one of the original guys. And so we've just, we have this pool of talent to pull from, and everybody seems to want to do it. So
I'm sure you're twisting arms. Listen, guys, we just want you to come on, drink a few beers, bullshit around a little bit, and hang out, and then if you don't mind. Are there some breweries or stops that you would love to go to that you have not been to yet?
Oh, plenty.
Yeah, I mean, one that I consume a fair amount of, it's in California, but have not been. It's in Northern California, and I'm in LA. Russian River Brewing. Wow, they just make amazingly great beers. Fortunately, even through all this madness, they've been available in LA. So, but I mean, my God, it's fantastic. Ooh, I want to go there. I want to just camp out.
we've been talking about doing something with these guys, Lagunitas.
Yeah.
Also Petaluma, California, Northern California. We've talked about doing something. I think it's only a matter of time. Well, actually, we did do something for them, right?
Oh yeah, we did something with Lagunitas.
We did something. Yeah, there was a beer convention down in San Diego, and we did a little concert with Kelly actually singing too for that
awesome.
one, and that was through the whole beer hookup
That's
thing.
awesome.
But yeah, Stone actually is another one. There was a Stone Brewing. They're down in San Diego, but there was a Stone Brewing amazing facility in Germany that we got to go to in Berlin, which was it's amazing. It's not there at that location anymore, unfortunately, but we got to go there. But yeah, Lagunitas, Stone, Lord Hobo. We're big fans of Lord Hobo in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know about them, but
I have friends out there, so I'm familiar with it. But it's
yeah. We've been talking about doing something with them too. So
it's got to be fun to kind of put together a wish list, right? Because as you're saying, just like a sommelier would with wine, you know, there's this pyramid of wines that, you know, start with the X bottle and move down into the beer is really no different, you know, depending on what you like. And there's so many different varieties. And have you found that as you entered your level 1 of expertise, did it change your tastes? And I know it's kind of a weird question, but did your taste change now that you understood it more?
that's a good question.
That is a good question.
I think the nuance, just maybe becoming more aware of the processes involved in the brewing and being exposed to more of it. You know, maybe because I think, well, like Bruce and I've always the sour thing. You know, I don't know if have you ever tried any sour beers, Jason?
Yeah, not heavy, not extreme. I mean, I don't sit down and, you know, down them, but I've had some drinks before where you're like, oh, okay, that's a little different. Like
that's still one I haven't been able to totally wrap my taste buds around yet either. I'm still I work at every once in a while. Hey, let me try it again. Let me see if. And I've had one or two that maybe like okay.
There's beer has gone so many different directions, right? Like one of the ones I grabbed all Oregon beers, and one of the ones I grabbed here it's from a company called Wild Ride Brew, and Wild Ride is in Redmond, Oregon, and it's called Nut Crusher Peanut Butter Porter.
Lord Almighty! Wow.
Nut Crusher.
Nut Crusher.
Crack it?
I was about to, but as you're talking, please continue, Michael. If you have more, and if not,
to your question, I think that the more knowledge that we've acquired, and for me, it helps me understand why I like something. So instead of just sort of like shooting in the dark, I'm now able to go after stuff that I know that I like. And then, you know, the discerning part of it has been good. Sometimes it's a drag because you taste something that you know is supposed to be a good beer and it's just been mishandled. And so you're going, well, I feel bad for the brewer and I feel bad for me right now because this is not right. And so, but you know, you have to fight the urge to try to call somebody out on it. You know, that becomes obnoxious. Whereas before you knew, it'd be like, I just don't like this beer. But now when you know it's been mishandled, you're like, well, that's a bummer.
Sure. Did you have favorite beers that changed as your horizons grew? Did you have some that you really liked that as you started to get broader and try more and a little bit, you kind of looked back and went, that was a great introductory beer, but I'm really glad I have new, you know.
Well, I think the IPA thing forever was just sort of, you know, I mean, I'm sure in Europe and Oregon, I mean, the IPAs are just like,
big here.
I mean, and in a way it got a little too much, right? I mean, it's just sort of, I mean, I've been in grocery stores, I've been in supermarkets where all there was IPAs. Like I couldn't get anything else. It's like, how many IPAs do you really need in the beer section?
Yeah.
What do you think, man? I see you.
It's
examining.
It doesn't even have, it's beer, but it's not at the same time. It's like,
Is
it's like
it sweet?
It is. It's got a little bit of sweet to it. It's got a little bit of a sweet peanut butter. Almost has because it's a stout, kind of has a coffee-ish undertone to it.
Sounds pretty heavy.
It's heavy. It's good, but it's not something I would necessarily drink 6 of. You know, like, it actually is a 6% alcohol, and it's an IBU of 18.
Okay, so that's not very bitter. That's
not bitter, and I think you throw a scoop of vanilla ice cream in there, and that's probably what it's supposed to.
I was just gonna say. It's like a float. It's a float.
That's actually a brilliant idea.
Yeah,
it's a float beer.
It'd be like a dessert kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. Anyway, continue. Sorry, I was.
Yeah, I was just
gonna.
With Michael,
go ahead, Bruce.
The IPAs were so like. I remember when we first they first came to us, it was like fascinating, like to be overwhelmed with hops, and hops are like, it's such a great flavor, such a great thing. And now I've come to find that, it seems a bit easy for people to just jam hop goodness at the end of a beer, and that kind of can cover up a lot of other stuff.
Sure.
And it's a big, heavy experience to drink a strong hoppy IPA. And I've really come back to just seeking out a really good Pilsner, good lager. I love ales, I love British ales and all that, but I mean, it's hard to find a good Pilsner or lager. And I think they're more difficult to make.
Yeah, and
that simple classic beer is hard to make.
That's something that we, in the Germans do that so well. I mean, that's like they win. I mean, just, it's the Pilsners, and actually Bruce and I were at an amazing place right down the street from me last night. This German sausage and beer place, and they have a wonderful selection. And the two of the standouts are Bitburger. Yeah, Bitburger and Kolsch. Yeah. So, and the Bitburger on tap there. And I actually have to echo what Bruce is saying about the sort of like that classic Pilsner or lager thing. I mean, if all you're exposed to is Budweiser and Busch and Miller stuff, it's like you're not experiencing, right?
Classic,
like a real, like
America.
Yeah. I mean, which, it's coming from, it's lighter, right? And a lot of Pilsners and lagers are lighter, but man,
you can put
to get that balance, to get that crispness, and to get that hop finish, which is just right,
and
like,
the malt, it's obviously hard to do.
It's hard to do, to get it just right,
And if you were, and I know this is, again, kind of a favorite question, which is not fair, and I'm not going to ask you your favorite beer, but if you were educating someone, if someone came to you and said, hey, I'm interested in beer, I like beers in general, but I don't really know, how do you, would you help them in some way? I mean, would you give them a path? And what kind of path would you provide? Where do you kind of have a starting beer and then you kind of branch and see what you like and ask people what they like? Or
it's hard to do without being like in person. It usually happens in a conversation where you're with someone and you're in a place where you try to guide them towards what might be available at a particular bar or pub or something. And you may or may not have something that you wish you could introduce to them, but you can certainly take someone down a path and have them try different things and say, you probably aren't gonna like this, but try this. Way too heavy. But yeah, you kind of have to do it with what's available at the moment. For me to give a laundry list of something to try, I don't know if it would work, but are they going to go out and get exactly what I tell them to do?
No, but I mean, I think, but also maybe, I mean, IPAs for a lot of people, if all you've been drinking is Budweiser, your whole life, like really lighter, super light, like sort of more watery kind of beers. The IPA is a huge jump, right? For a lot of people don't like that, don't take to it. But I think
uncomfortable because it's a heavier, it's a different drink. It fills you up differently. It's a different.
But along the lines of the Pilsners and lagers, I'd say, hey, go out and get a 6-pack of Bitburger, in a bottle, or a Pilsner or Kel, maybe. Pilsner or Kel is pretty solid, and then you're in the family, right, of a lager beer, Pilsner beer, but you can say, okay, now let me step it up, and I'm gonna get a little more personality to it, and a little rounder, and more of a malt and hop experience, where you're not going to get killed like you would with an IPA.
But I've been happy to see people sort of have a shift when working with Guinness, because people look at it and they go, oh God, Guinness, I can't, it looks exactly like what you're drinking, it looks like that, but
it's
so smooth and so light. It's only like 5% alcohol. And I think if you get someone to just say, look, close your eyes, I promise, if you get in the headspace of opening up to it, forgetting about the color, I mean, it's a really easy drink it's a good stepping stone. They realize, wow, just because it's dark doesn't mean it has to be heavy.
Most people make that association. Yeah, they think it's dark, it's heavy, it's going to be really rich, it's going to kill me with hops or like super sweet, rich kind of, but it's not. It's actually really smooth.
Which is interesting because I lived in Ireland briefly, not a long time, but I went to school over there and lived there for a little bit. And you go into a pub and everyone from the 90-year-old woman in the corner, to the relative kid has Guinness. So it's not a conversation over there. I mean, other beers are consumed, but Guinness is such a regular just a regular everyday. But it's funny that it's extreme over here. And I mean, I get it, different country, different things, and fair enough.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to your point, people go, well, Guinness, oh, I don't want to chew my beer,
Yeah.
blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
90-year-old granny over there is putting them down like it's her job. What do you,
Yeah.
what's
They
your
are
excuse?
smooth. It's
They're
butter.
smooth, right?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So if I were to ask you the personal question of what could someone find in your refrigerator right now in terms of the beer world, what are you guys consuming at the moment?
You got Michael.
Well, I'm super concerned that I'm down to actually only one more of these in the refrigerator, and it's got me. I'm getting the shakes. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm like,
The anticipation shakes.
I like to keep a nice, kind of like balanced. I'll have
Palette. Array.
I like to have some pilsners and lagers. I do like the IPAs. I had some Boddingtons, which is really nice.
Boddington is good.
Yeah, it's got the widget in there, kind of like the Guinness in
Like
the can,
Guinness.
so it's lighter, not as the carbonation, it's not as bubbly, right? Because it's the nitrous. Yeah, like that's kind of recently I had. So yeah, Bruce, I think Bruce was over here yesterday, and I gave him one of the Stone Tropic of Thunder lagers.
Really good.
From Stone, really nice. I definitely a bolder lager by, and probably I think it was 5.8% ABV. So, a little higher up for a lager and definitely bolder on the hops for sure, but really nice. So I had that, the IPA, the Boddingtons for sort of a creamy ale, but yeah, that kind of stuff.
I seek out like a light beer, like a Kolsch style beer or something. There's so many breweries in the country, but there's the grocery store near me has, all of them have massive selections of good beer, and you can find a couple that are brewed in LA, so they're fresh, but like a Kolsch style or a good pilsner. And then I really like a brown ale, like a British brown ale.
Yeah.
Like, there's a place, Alesmith in LA or in California that does a great nut brown ale. So something light pilsnery, and then a brown ale, and then either like some IPAs. So I would have those three categories rotating.
Do either of you have a favorite in what I will horrendously rudely label the layman beers of just basic, all the generic beers from Rolling Rock to this blah 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 blah, Coors and on down. Is there a favorite within the everyday beers?
I would say Mexican food's really big around here in LA. So like a Pacifico. I mean, I guess it's not a regular everyday beer, but I can like. If I'll do a Corona with a lime, on a really hot day, nice, and if it's really cold and maybe I'm having some Mexican food, I wouldn't pour that out,
scoff?
I wouldn't scoff at it. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, to my mind, it's like Guinness. Guinness is available everywhere, and like I don't know, it's you're probably asking about American lagers, right?
Well, just whatever. Like if the normal person goes into a grocery store and you see the typical array of beers, if you guys have, you can't get to your normal selections. Right. Is there a favorite within the generic brands? And I don't mean that rudely. Apologies to all the regular brands out there.
I mean, I like Anchor Steam is something that seems to be available. Pretty That's on the higher end of like massively available stuff. But I wouldn't. It's hard to grab. It's hard to grab a Bud Light. That's hard for me to. Well, it's just if you're water skiing in outside of Vegas, it's 115, and you pull one of those out of the ice chest, and that's what you should be drinking right there. Yeah, that's where it belongs.
I think it's hard. It's hard when you really like the taste of beer, like the way we do.
That's why I'm asking.
And then when you drink something where it's so watery that you feel it sort of barely tastes like beer, the things that we love about it, that's frustrating to me to not taste those elements prominently.
Well, you likened what you guys you likened the Cicerone to a sommelier, and it's the same thing, right? The people that are really, really into wines, they don't want table wine anymore. Right. Table wine tastes like vinegar or whatever, right? They all have a word for however that tastes. It's just not the same. And where most people can sit down and have a glass of table red and go, yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Well, it's not to someone that really knows wine, but to you in that moment, it's
the $2 Chuck from Trader Joe's.
Yeah, man. $2 Chuck. I think it's like $3 Chuck now, actually.
Oh, no. Slow down.
Yeah, I know, right? It could still be $2. Sorry, Chuck. And are you guys consuming, as we've talked throughout this chat, I saw a couple tips going on there. What do we drink at the moment? I saw you have the IPA down there, right, Michael?
I have the Lagunitas IPA, yep, out of Petaluma, California.
And Bruce, what do you got under the cozy there?
These are pretty widely available. The High Life from Cigar City. It's a juicy hazy IPA.
Really good
fruity,
stuff.
But solid, not too strong. 7.5. It's up there, but
it's not too strong. Oh, 12. Oh, my bad.
Yeah. But these we've been enjoying. We've got a friend who works over there, and he has turned us on a lot of the Cigar City stuff, and it's really great, really solid. And but they're very good at the juicy IPA.
That's kind of their flagship. That one. Yeah.
This question may fall short because I don't have enough background on it, but I was reading something the other day that there are certain beers, and there's only a select few, that the alcohol content is so high they're actually restricted in a bunch of states. Have you guys ever dabbled in any of those? Yeah, a lot of states are not allowed to carry them because of the way they're actually trending into hard alcohol territory.
Wow, I actually did not know that. I did not know that. Well, one of the ones, oh no, I'm sorry, that was from Deep Ellum, from Dallas, near Dallas, Texas. There was an IPA they sent us, the Dream Crusher, it was called. That was 9.5%. I mean, you could really taste the boozing. You could really taste the alcohol in it.
But it still straddles on the thing of a beer, because then when you start getting like the 11, 12, 13, it becomes usually a darker, like Russian Imperial stout. You really know, you're aware of the fact that you're drinking something really powerful. But when it stays up at 10, you can still tell yourself it's a beer, and you can
get in a lot of trouble really quickly.
Oh yeah, if you haven't eaten much, one or two of those, and you're going to be really, you're
in a bad place for that night,
or a good place, depending on,
or a very good place, depending on how you view it. Well, listen, before we get out of here, let's do some shameless plugs. Where can folks find you guys online? Where do we see V.I.B?
Yes, it's Foreigner V.I.B right online. You just search for that. I actually don't. Maybe we could get the link somehow up. Maybe when you guys post this or something.
We'll put one at the bottom.
Yeah. But Foreigner V.I.B is you'll find it there.
And do you guys carry them on your website as well as YouTube, or are they all YouTube based?
It's YouTube.
Yeah. And there are podcasts as well that are available if you just want to do an audio version of it.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And I only bring the shirts up because people seem to love the shirts, and you can get those at boneyardrockshop.com.
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 You can get these guys and get the shirt.
Cozy.
Bruce Watson.
Cozy.
Bluestein. Yeah. Get cozy with our cozy.
Get you cozy.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough for taking the time to chat with me, and of course all of the Rock and Romance fans, Rock and Romance Cruise fans, and all the cruise fans out there. And let's be honest, music fans in general. First and foremost, you guys are rock stars. Secondary to most, you would be beer connoisseurs. No offense, but most people would go Foreigner and then beer connoisseur. To you, I'm sure you have specific fans that take you as beer connoisseurs and then rock stars. But whichever order it is, I really appreciate you taking the time and to chat and to discuss all that we discussed. And I look forward to seeing some more episodes. Is there anything that you want to tease, or anything that you want people to stay in tune for that you got coming up, maybe?
I think just keep tuning into that V.I.B. We crank them out, and I think.
How often do you do them?
Sorry?
How often do you do them? Sorry.
Weekly.
Yeah, we've been doing them weekly. Yep.
So there's content there, and there are some things percolating. I think it's definitely a growing organism. So
it's evolving. We're finding different ways to get it out there, different markets.
Cool.
We're looking at a European, a friend of ours that's worked a lot in radio, that's very interested in it, and we're sort of getting some ideas percolating with him about getting that out too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Let's launch some ships, man. Let's get back out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's get back on another Rock and Romance cruise. I know our fans would absolutely love, the Rock and Romance crowd. It's a 70s rock cruise, and it kind of straddles that era, and they go from the lighter end of the rock to the rock end of the rock. They pretty much love all the great music from that era. And I tell you what, the Rock and Romance fans were huge. The Rock and Romance cruisers were huge fans of you guys. We had so many wonderful comments and so many just raving reviews about as soon as Foreigner's back, we're back, you know, and or we're
really?
back anyway, but when Foreigner's back, let us know ahead of time. And, you know, so you guys are welcome back anytime. We'd love to have you. And
Yeah,
obviously we're big supporters of what you guys do. And hopefully we can get back out on the ship here before too long.
Let's
And
do it, man.
and we can catch up on some very important beers.
Great.
Sounds
great.
good.
Sounds good, Jason.
All right, Jason.
Bruce, Michael, you guys are awesome. I really appreciate you. And to all the rock and romance fans and music fans in general, thank you so much for tuning in to a split version, a little bit of All Access Pass from home, a little bit of V.I.B here on our YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in as always. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, and do your best to treat each other with kindness. We'll see you again soon. Whatever you decide to do, be well. See you later.
Later. See ya.